and officially welcoming you to the Imagine Belonging Network podcast, Dr. Lulu. Really an honor to interview you. So I want to start with your inspiration for the work that you're doing today. Your professional experience is as a board-certified pediatrician, and your lived experiences as a mother of a transgender adult. Obviously, that influences your why. Why you're running the business that you're running. Focusing on supporting parents of LGBTQ young people. So help us understand a little bit more. Share a little bit more about why this life-saving work is so desperately needed at this point in time, and why you're moving forward serving as an advocate for trans rights.
More like an activist. But I think the long and short of the answer is I was my child. And today I am you, and I'm talking to you as a parent of a queer child. That's the summary of it. I was my child. I was the misunderstood queer child. I told my father when I was 16 that I liked girls and boys. And my dad very lovingly just kind of gently waved it up and said, it's a phase. A lot of girls feel that way and you'll be fine. And I was like, okay, well, my dad is better at adulting than I am. He's been adulting for a long time, so he must know what he's saying. And I believed him, and I went about my business. And then I just literally, I don't want to use the word kill because I think kill is so like final, but I nearly killed that aspect of me. I nearly did. I had just been as stealth as I could, and I focused on everything else, which ideally is the way it should be, by the way. For heterosexual people whose children are not queer or LGBT, your sexuality is not up for debate. It's not a conversation. No one talks about it. It's definitely not at the Capitol. So I want you to see how when you focus on something, it gets bigger. Because the truth is, no one is talking about being straight. It's not a conversation. So why does not being straight, why is it on the dinner table all of a sudden? So I grew up not liking myself, that aspect of myself. I was Catholic. I didn't want to go to hell. I was told all of that. And when my child was born, and really within the first 2 years, I was like, oh God. My mom was like, what? I said, I think he's gay. My mom was like, oh my God, bring the holy water. Don't say that. I said, I think he's gay. She was like, oh, please. And I was like, God, please, whatever you do, just give me anything else but this, Now I know better. But I also believe that the child was given to me to do the work, because I did not start doing this work until after I found out that my child was non-binary. I did a lot of thinking. What does it mean? Why me? Why now? And I was still trying to deal with that. And then I was like, boom, I'm transgender? What? Like, come on, God, no, no. And then I realized, and God said to me, so if not you, then who? Like, who do you want me to send to do this work? I'm waiting. I was like, well, I don't know if you put it that way. No, God, God's pronouns are they, them for me. And so they were like, no, for real, tell me, humor me a little. Who should I send? You're Black. You know you're queer. I don't care what your dad said. You're a pediatrician. You're an immigrant. You're coming from Nigeria, one of the most homophobic countries. If you were in Nigeria, you could not have done this work. There's a reason why I took you and placed you in America, a place where maybe to some extent you have a platform. And then wait, you do have a platform. You were freaking interviewed by Oprah. Who do you want me to send? I was like, God, you have to put it, yes, I have to put it that way. And so it hit me. I need to do this work. And one of the things when I tell that story, one of the things I say is, And I said, so God, I have a question. And God's like, yes. And before I could say the question, I said, oh, yeah. Of course, I'll send you people like Rhodes Perry Rhodes, whoever, whatever the name is. I'll send you people to help you get the job done. But the job doing, you must. I had to come to terms with that. Okay. What's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is I do not accept my child. That's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
The worst thing that could happen is I don't affirm my child. A lot of parents and non-parents, we think that the worst thing that could happen is our child dying by suicide. Actually, that's not. That's a consequence of the worst thing, which is me betraying the child. And that's why my first TED Talk, I talk about betrayal as the reason for youth suicide. Even though the drug companies want you to think it's depression, I'm very happy when that argument is brought up, because I love to define depression as thinking or focusing on something that has happened, while anxiety is thinking and focusing about something that, thank you, that is yet to happen or might not. Oh my God, I'm going to do a TED Talk next week. Lord, what if I forget my words? What if, see, that's worryation. Now, that said, I'm not negating the fact that childhood trauma, if you know the ACEs study, you know that childhood trauma was the culprit of most ailments that we have today, including depression, including suicide. So why don't we focus on childhood trauma? America would rather give guns to teachers. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? We have 2,900 mass shootings since 2018. I know because I saw it yesterday on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is my Bible. It's about 2,900, 2,878 or something like that. All mass shootings since 2018. Of the 2,900, 3 of them are by trans people. 2,900. And American adults would not let me hear, because one person did a mass shooting and they are trans. Of the 2,900, why is that math not mathing? And so God is like, listen, you have a big mouth. You go tell them. You're fearless. Tell them. Don't forget your self-care, which is what I did yesterday. I took a self-care day. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, we just had a conversation earlier in our space about burnout and toxic ambition, and being able to answer that question, you know, when do I pause? When do I rest? When do I recharge to maintain that?
Took everything in my power to not cancel this interview.
Okay.
This is my 4th one today.
Well, you're doing it.
And I said, if I cancel it, what's my kid gonna say? I'll do it. I'll do it.
I'm grateful that you're here, and you know, and bringing up those numbers too, you know, just the reality that, like any kind of aspect of our identity, no one person represents every single community that we're attached to, right? And I think what's really important about any kind of violence is that we know that trans and non-binary people are often the targets of violence, right? So
exactly. And just to kind of take the baton from there, any other group of people that I know of, besides Black and trans people, who have been systemically, and incessantly attacked the way they've been attacking trans people, will have taken to the streets with guns years ago. In a country where you can have a gun at 13. We saw what happened on January 6th last year. No one was attacking them, and they took guns to the Capitol. Imagine if those people that took the guns to Capitol have been the subject of the kind of debate the kind of incessant disrespect and just attempt to annihilate at this point. I love that word. It's one of my favorite words is annihilate. Next to rhetoric. I just like words. An attempt to annihilate a group of humans, which, by the way, I always say that if you killed every single queer person in the whole world today, in exactly 40 weeks, new ones will be born. Because heterosexuals make homosexuals.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality of human diversity, and there's so many beautiful components of our communities that if people took the time to get to know us, they can appreciate or could. So a lot of the work that we do is about bridge building. And before we can talk about building the bridge, I just want to acknowledge a lot of the advocacy that you're doing right now, a lot of the activism you're doing is countering so many of the anti-trans bills that are out there. Like right now, just took another look. There's a really great website that looks at trans legislation. It's the Trans Legislation Tracker. You can Google that. But close to 500 anti-trans bills this year alone. 421 of them are still active. 43 have failed and 25 have passed. Right. So these 421 bills that are still moving forward, they're happening in almost every state. I'm in
Yes.
state, I'm in Oregon, you're in Texas. Bills are in both of these states. Fortunately,
I just worry about how America got here. I don't know that America, which I spell with 3 Ks, recognizes the fact that once upon a time, people looked up to her. Countries, by the way, have a pronoun of she, her, in case anybody's wondering, because that's another thing that I cannot wrap my head around, the fact that the word pronouns suddenly became a political thing. The word woke, which means awareness, became a political thing. Like, how retrogressive are we? Is this for real? Do these people really believe their rhetoric? Another word that I like. Is this for real? How do you explain this?
yeah, it's
Unbelievable. And America doesn't get that. She is the laughing stock right now. You want to now give teachers guns. I don't even know whose idea this is. How is that okay? To put it in a classroom with children, where studies have shown that homes that have firearms have 25% more fatal injuries. You want to now put it in schools. Who does this? How? I want to cuss. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand how it's more important for you to placate your constituents than to save lives. How the children ever become a threat? When the children become a threat, how is a child a threat? I get it.
Yeah, it's pretty intense times. And I mean, so we've got our fingers on the pulse of kind of the nature of these bills that have been introduced. And just for anybody who's kind of like here wanting to learn more, kind of aware, but not kind of in the nitty-gritty, kind of the broad overview is that a lot of these bills are attempting to block those of us who are trans from accessing basic healthcare, accessing education, public accommodations, even the opportunity to participate in sport. And, from your perspective, Dr. Lulu, how does this legislation impact trans young people? I know that you're doing a lot of advocacy with parents who have trans or non-binary kids. And, and if we can link it to how, if we talk about childhood trauma, how that carries on into adulthood, how that could impact the future of workplaces, right? So any direction you want to go on that, I think that might help people kind of understand like, wow, this is serious and I need to engage more.
I think those who are going to understand are going to understand, and those who are not going to. One of the things I talk about is that everyone is not my tribe. So I'm not really here to change anybody's mind. I'm just here to state the facts. I went to Texas Capitol on Monday. House Bill 1686 proposes to ban all gender affirming care. Here's the problem with that lingo. The most common people on earth who have gender affirming care are balding white men. But that's not who they're talking about. Liposuction, lip injections, all the things that you do on your face, that's all gender affirming care. But they want to go after doctors and healthcare providers who offer gender affirming care will have their licenses revoked. I want people to see we already have a shortage of doctors. And unfortunately, most doctors that I know of are Republicans, unfortunately, and too chicken, too cowardly. There were 6 of us that were physicians at the Capitol on Monday. Of 2,700 people that were there, 6 of us were physicians. I know because I made an announcement and 6 of them came to me. 5 of them came to me. Only 6 of us. And I don't even practice. So I'm just saying that it's one of those things that, we say in Nigeria, when there's a fire in your neighbor's house, you better not look away because your house is freaking next, buddy. So that's one bill. The day after, which was Tuesday, there was a bill introduced to ban all pride events at schools. So these are the ones I know in Texas. They're already too damaging as they are. One of the people over there at the Capitol, who was one of the bright people that were asking questions, was like, well, how do you define a woman? Are you kidding me right now? What has that got to do with anything? How do you define a woman? Gender affirming care. They will not listen because their minds are made up. Has never been something that is offered to children that are underage. We have said it in every language in the world. As a matter of fact, we have been doing hormone replacement therapy, hormone therapy for children that have Klinefelter syndrome, androgen dehiscesivity syndrome, premature puberty, precocious puberty. We've been using hormones in children forever. It's not a new thing. Turner syndrome, like all kinds of, oh my God, the ignorance of it all. And this one guy is an anesthesiologist. I don't even understand what he's doing there. He was the one that said, well, how do you define a woman? Are you serious? You're a doctor? So on Monday, I did have a lot of hope because I saw 2,700 children and their families who went there, were fearless at the rotunda. I don't know where my phone is. I want to show you the picture of these children who were like, we're going to be here. And at midnight, they did what they call a die-in, where a bunch of them, this is the rotunda. I was there.
Wow.
Look at all the kids at the top level, street level, that level, that level. I was right about there. These are all human beings and more inside that couldn't come out, and they all stayed till midnight. Over 450 people signed up to testify. They only heard 8 people, their own invited guests, and they dragged it on all through 10 hours of asking them silly questions so that nobody will get a chance to testify. This was a steady, calculated effort at frustrating the kids, and yet the kids stayed up, and at midnight they were chanting till about 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. That to me is such a powerful light. We already know that these kids now, they are more accepting of themselves anyway, thank goodness. So it's just a matter of time before the old adults, white men who need to all die a very painful death, yes, I said it, need to get out of the way. It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Because it is an abomination for someone to vote you into power. You turn around and use that to attack them and hit them in the knees and behead them and cause them to fall on their knees and plead for mercy. There's no way anything good can happen to any of them. I mean, that's just it, because I'm Nigerian and we believe in voodoo big time. It's just not possible. I saw children crying, children that just want to be themselves. They just want a good doctor. If your child had cancer or, I don't know, asthma or even freaking allergies, you want to have access to a good doctor. That's all the parents are asking for. How is that a bad thing?
It's not. I mean, that's the power of your voice as both a parent of a transgender adult and as a board certified pediatrician. It's that lived experience and that tremendous amount of expertise that you bring to be that voice of reason and to remind voters that most voters wouldn't want a legislator, an elected official who may or may not have credentials of being a doctor, to get in the way of the care that they need from their medical professional that's medically necessary, that's going to help, help any of us lead better lives by getting the medical support that we need. So I feel like your voice is super, super powerful. And on the topic of power, right? You had mentioned there's a shortage of doctors, and
There's a shortage of doctors already.
and then the majority of whom, you had used the word cowardly, of doctors that know better, that certain,
Yes.
and fortunately, the American Medical Association, they're solid. They have
Yes. The American Academy of Pediatrics, American Psychiatric Association, American Association Society of Endocrinologists. I say what I said because there's a whole lot of Nigerian physicians in America. I don't know if you know this. One of them recently told me, yeah, but what if it goes against my morals? I lost it. She said to me, and I quote, what if it goes against my moral? Your morals? Your morals? What happened to first do no harm? What happened to your freaking Hippocratic oath? What happened to that? What morals do you have? What morals do you have? Do you not ever speed up and go past the speed limits, Miss Morals? Should we talk about morality right now? Somebody is who they are. Now, when a child says, Mom, Dad, I'm gay, what you hear is, Mom, Dad, I'm having sex. That's not what the child said. Mom, Dad, I'm trans. That's not, Mom, Dad, I've been molested. Mom, Dad, I'm not sure. By the way, sexuality begins to develop at the age of 2, actually infancy. So 0 to 2 years old. Sexuality is infancy. Gender identity is 2 to 4 years of age. A cisgendered boy, which y'all call a regular boy, knows that they're a regular boy at 2 to 4, which means a transgender boy also does. They might not understand it. They might not have the verbiage. And you might be so transphobic, they don't want to say it. My child did not tell me that she's transgender until 2 years ago, because she said in her own words, and I quote, Mom, our home was hugely transphobic. And I know this. And I am a living example of a queer person who experienced significant internalized homophobia to the point that I was asking my child to not be herself. Now, a lot of parents, I don't know where I'm going with this, but a lot of parents, their biggest fear to me is like, oh, doc, but I don't really want my child to be bullied. And I get it. However, what we do is we say, well, don't be yourself so that the people on the outside world don't bully you. And my question to you is, or my assertion to you is that that actually is being their first bully.
Yeah.
As a parent, when you say, I don't want to bully I don't want my kid to be bullied outside, I don't want the way the world, society is going to treat them, I get it. Then you ask them to not be who they are, my friend. What you're doing is asking them to also pretend, be stealth, lie, I don't know, whatever. So what you're doing is psychologically bullying them because you can.
Yeah, it's kind of what you were saying, thinking about a protective factor of my child, this truth of who they are. They trusted me enough to take care of that truth. And I'm going to swoop in and protect them from the world, which, that might be the instinct. And like what you said, it's denying a young person, bargaining with them about how they show up in the world. And that is that first trauma, that first bully.
It is the first one. It's the biggest one, because your child doesn't know these people that you're imagining out there. Your child knows you. Your child trusts you. You are their caregiver, their nurturer, their provider. You. So whatever you say to them is what they hear. My father told me it was a phase. I believed him. Now, I'm not trans. I didn't tell my dad I'm trans. But I told my dad I liked girls. And he said, and so for 26 years, I was not, until I was like, wait, this is not going away. This thing that my dad said was a phase was not phasing out. Well, let's lean in and evaluate this a little bit more. Now, I say that to say, I'm not telling you I'm not invalidating your feelings. What I'm saying is, while your feelings are valid, your child is waiting. 1, 2, as long as you're asking your child to be who they are not, you're not looking for appropriate health care for them. You're not getting them gender affirming care. You're not, because you're asking them to not be that. I'll tell you a true story. When once upon a time, my mom was coming to visit, and I told my daughter, please, whatever you do, don't paint your nails when grandma comes here. I said that. I was telling her to not be herself. Then my mom came, my mom was like, oh my goodness, your nails are so pretty. What? Here's the point. I was already making the decision for my mother, right? I made a decision for my mom that my mom was not going to like it. I made a decision and I was in fear, and I get it. But the question is, while we are always assuming, did your child ask you to assume that they were going to be straight? You assumed that. You assigned that gender to them at birth. They didn't say, Mom, I'm a boy. You said it's a boy. They didn't say, Mom, I'm a girl. You said it's a girl. You socialize the child as a girl. You raise the child up as a girl. The child never told you that. When the child told you, the day the child is like, wait, are you sure? The day the child tells you their truth, you're like, wait, who have you been listening to? Is that your friend? Or such and such? We start trying to negotiate, like you said, putting all these myths and misconceptions, telling everything but what it is, which is, wow, tell me more. Maybe how long have you known? Maybe thank you for sharing that with me. Wow, how can I help make your burden lighter? Which is what I said in my other TED Talk. I said, how can I make your burden lighter? What can I do to make things easier for you versus, oh my God, which is what I did. Why? What are you doing? Why me? And I go in my room and cry. Now, cry if you must, but that's not your child's problem. 9 times out of 10, your child just wants dinner. They just want you to say, okay, I hear you. Is there anything you would like us to do differently to affirm you, right? That's what they want to hear. And then, what would you like for dinner? Because it's just business as usual. Not, oh my God, do you want to have surgery tomorrow? The child didn't say that. No. So to answer your first question, not affirming the children, not being able to affirm the children will have a huge ripple effect. And what we're seeing now at 47% of these kids seriously considering suicide, according to the Trevor Project, is going to, I don't know what number it's going to be. When they're done with all of this, I don't know what number it's going to be. And then of the 47% who seriously considered suicide, 14% actually attempted. And of those 14% that attempted, 1 out of 5 of them, I think, is transgender or gender expansive. So we have to, and then if you toss in Black, it's over. Most people don't know that there was a study done in 2016 that showed that African-American children aged 5 through 12 are twice as likely as their white counterparts to die by suicide. That study, most people don't talk about it. It was first done in 2012 and again in 2016, and they got the exact same results. Nobody talks about why. It's trauma. It's ACEs.
Yeah, there's a work that I've done in my consulting group with Advocates for Youth was looking at the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is given out to high school students and public school settings. And there's a report we put out called On All Sides, and it was looking at cisgender, transgender young people and looking at it across race. So for BIPOC, trans young people, you know, we're looking at compound effects of racism, transphobia, in certain instances, homophobia too, and all of the indicators of health risk or, you know, with suicide ideation, much, much higher. So, you know, it's a lived experience that we don't necessarily need the research yet. At the same time, using those studies to kind of say, hey, you know, these are the effects, these are the outcomes of state-sanctioned violence through legislation, you know, media that is promoting misinformation, including the news.
Yes.
And so the work that you're doing is so, so important. And one of the big things that we talk about in our communities is around allyship, right? And at its best, you know, it's when a person from one community advocates for and alongside members of another community that are different from their own, right? And so I think your allyship as a cisgender person showing up not only for your child, you know, you're showing up for communities in Texas and across the country, around the world, is really a great example of what allyship is. And for a lot of people, you know, again, like what we're talking about, we kind of live and breathe this, right? Because it impacts us in different ways, but it's so close, right? And so when you think about the effect of allyship, like what you find working, what you see kind of your friends and family members doing that are effective, what are some of those everyday actions that you would like to see more of your neighbors in Texas taking, more people in this country who aren't necessarily trans doing, to say, this is not us, right? And the reason why I ask, right, is as an example, Kentucky, I think yesterday just passed, and today is March 30th, 2023, they just passed an omnibus anti-trans bill. So it's like all of the bills that you talked about in one kind of package. And there are a lot of people that were advocating for this that didn't even live in the state. And most and then they did a public poll in Kentucky. In Kentucky, 71% of voters in Kentucky are opposed to this. 71%. Yeah. So like, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening saying, oh my gosh, this is terrible. You know, I would like to do something. What's kind of accessible for more people? Like if they did one thing, that kind of ripple effect that you talk about could be profoundly beneficial to those of us who are trans, non-binary.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. The most important thing they can do in a country where it matters is vote. Everybody who can vote should vote. I know how that sounds, but the only reason we're having this conversation is because people that we voted in are making decisions that are coming to, you know, today might be the trans people. Tomorrow it's going to be blue-eyed people. They will be blonde people. I mean, they already took away the Roe versus Wade. Now just think about that. In a country where voting counts, you must vote. That's how you can make your voice heard. And more people are going to turn 18. I heard that they're going to now make voting 21. You know what? They can make voting 50 if they like. If you have an opportunity to vote, vote. That's number one. I think in a country where, like America, where for now, for the most part, voting still counts, vote. Vote already. Now, that said, look into who you're voting though. You know, it's not omnibus vote. I'm going to steal that word. Woo! But certainly votes. So votes, but then look at who you're voting for. Look at their history of what they've done in the past. And this is a country where people, can vote something and then it can get reversed. And that's what I've seen. I'm a naturalized American, so I don't know the depth of that, but I know things can be reversed. They can reverse Roe versus Wade. They can reverse anything. That's the truth. But also hits people where their money is. A lot of times, I know during the lockdown, there was I can't remember what it was, but there was something called a Black Tuesday, where all the Black people were supposedly not to, I think there's something about Black, it was a major thing.
Not buying it.
And not buy anything, and it's something like that. I wasn't going out of my house anyways. I wasn't going to buy anything, but the point is, it was systematic, it was planned, and it was orchestrated, and they pulled it off. That's the second thing I would say. And then the third thing naturally is, honestly, charity still begins at home. So still watch what you say at home. These kids that go and shoot up the schools, they're not sentinel events. They're members of the society that they've been hearing all of these things. And I know everybody wants to say is mental illness because it's easy, so that the drug companies can keep selling you their antidepressants. Now, if you watch my first TED Talk, you see where I mentioned that the use of antidepressants in the last 3 years had quadrupled, and suicide rates continue to soar. So that math is not mathing. We have to watch what we're saying. Now, I'm going to say this. If my child was not transgender, I don't know that I would be saying what I'm saying right now. I don't know that. So I get it. However, my child is transgender. It is the cards that have been decked. I've been given these cards. So I'm going to have to play my cards. So now that my child is transgender, now that I know better, I have to do better. So when you know better, do better. Now, the case of Pharaoh in the Bible. Pharaoh was an Egyptian king or whatever who, I think he didn't want the Israelites to leave until I think there was a plague. And then when his son was affected by the plague, then he let the Israelites leave. And even after that, he sent his chariots after them, and they all drowned in the Dead Sea. So we don't have to wait for another Pharaoh effect to happen. In other words, because my child is not trans, I'm not going to fight. Or because, we don't have any queer people in our family. Every time when people said, we don't have anybody that is gay in my family, I said, well, then look in the mirror. Because it's you. It's that ubiquitous, if I may use that word. It's everywhere. So if they don't, really, truly, they're coming for all of us. If it's not women's rights, it's immigrants, it's always something. Today is the trans kids. So I would say to the trans people, stay strong. Stay strong. We can wait them out. I say this with all the love in my heart, knowing fully well that you can move to a different state. There are other things that you may not want, but I don't know what state is safe right now. And then people just go and buy a gun and just shoot people. That was just happened in San Antonio here. Somebody came into a hair salon and just killed the trans person. Just like that. The person was doing their hair, unprovoked. So I'm not saying, I don't know where it's safe. I don't have all the answers. I'm just as stressed out as you are, but I'm speaking up. That maybe God will just shower mercy somehow so that my kid is alive for me. Because I don't know if you know that there's this number, I think it's this hashtag for trans women is live past 35 or something like that, hashtag something past 35. I need my kid to be alive till their natural death, please. So anyway.
You have the answers, and that you're trusting your truth. You're speaking your truth, and there's courage in that, and I use that in like the most affirming kind of way.
I know. And I wish I don't have any, I mean, I don't have any special answers. You know, in the coaching world, they say you are most poised to coach the person you were. I was a parent who was just as, confused, as afraid, feeling shame, feeling guilt. That was me. I feel that all of those emotions. Sometimes I still feel some of those emotions. But I now know that my kid told me earlier this week, she said, Mom, this is the happiest I've ever been. I live for that. This is the happiest I've ever been. She said, come, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But this is the happiest I heard my child say that to me. This is not about being trans. This is just about being a kid. It's just a child. She just wants to eat dinner and be left alone to watch TV and just walk out the door. My neighbor down the street, let me tell you a story. My neighbor down the street stopped me the other day and said, so how is such and such doing? And I said the correct name and said the correct pronoun. And then he was like, well, yeah, because guess what? How about one of my nieces is trans? I said, So he's like, well, so I just wanted to know what can I do? I said, you see, that's the thing. Everybody thinks it's not me until it becomes me. My neighbor had the Republican flag flying. And then he was like, I just don't know, because his niece, which is his sister's child, now he sees his sister crying like me. And now he's like, I don't want anything to happen to my niece. See, it's coming.
I think that's kind of what question, and is what is that message? And we're figuring this out as we go, that invites more people in to be a part of, say, this is not who we are.
It's not really who we are. It's never been. People by nature are not racists. I mean, let's just take something as easy as racism. I say easy because it's been here forever. I saw on LinkedIn today, someone wrote, say, let people be racist if they want to. Your job is to educate them. It's terrible. So it's a deep, deep cancer. And cancer, I do not use lightly, because I know cancer means it's malignant, which means it's going to spread. The only thing I know about cancer is you can take it out from the source, you can give chemotherapy, but what happens usually when people have cancer? They die of it. So I don't know that America is going to survive this. I truly don't know that America. The funny thing is, this week is Trans Visibility Week, and this week is today's Doctors Awareness, today's National Doctors Day, today. And we have all these bills, and we didn't see doctors. Like, imagine if doctors went on strike.
Yeah.
I can only wish. Doctors are like, listen, you're not taking our licenses because we're doing the right thing. But doctors are like, I'm going to be quiet. I don't want my license revoked. Imagine if the doctors stormed the Capitol. What would happen?
This would be done. It wouldn't be.
It would be done like that. Because they're all old men on Viagra and heart medicine. They need their prescriptions. Imagine if the doctors are like, we're walking out. Actually, maybe I'll see if I can organize that.
I was just writing down, you said vote. And I think the second one I summarized as like organize, right? Because
I mean, at this point, organize a walk out day. Today will have been the day to do it because today is National Doctors Day. But I took a mental health day and said, I just could not. I mean, you're getting all of this because it's still so fresh. What I saw at the Capitol on Monday, it's still so fresh. Yeah. Maybe this time next week, I may not be thinking like this. I don't know. I have my TED Talk next week in upstate New York, so I'm definitely not going to be thinking like this. But the energy would take me into next week. So I'll kill it, right? Because it's still raw. And it's titled Parenting as Students. I want parents to learn from their children and not the other way around. So It's going to be fun.
Okay, so on that, I think this is a good question to kind of wrap up the interview. And that question is, you had mentioned, before your child came out and said, hey, mom, I'm trans, right? That there was a learning journey for you, and kind of like unraveling maybe some of like the internalized transphobia that was there just because it's everywhere in our culture. I'm curious, like, what were, aside from your child, right? That kind of that love that you have for your child, what were like maybe one or two resources that come to mind that were really, really helpful for you? Maybe it was talking to another parent that you trusted, that you admired, or maybe it was a book, but like what helped you outside of your child teaching you, right? Which I would say probably is pretty significant.
Yeah.
But other things that gave you some support, some feeling like, oh, I'm not alone. Something
Mm.
sparked you that maybe you share as a resource for other people when they're just kind of getting started on their journeys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think when my kid went from presumed gay, which is what I assigned them, to non-binary and then to transgender. So just so parents will know, a lot of times it does morph. Some people have likened it to the child testing the waters to see, let's do non-binary and see. Some kids will come out as bisexual first on their way to gay. Some kids will come out as non-binary first on their way to trans. Some kids will, do whatever combination. So just parents be aware. And then also know that, like I said earlier on, you were the one that assigned them this gender. They did not tell you that. The only book I know, because when I decided to coach, I told my middle child, I said, please do me a favor and go on Google and find me any Black female coaches of LGBT. And when the kid got to page 23, I think, or page 12 of Google, like, Mom, I said, what? I was like, what? There's none. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh, this person, that person. No, I'm literally a unicorn. That's what Oprah said to me. She said, oh my God, you're gallant. And like, you're a trailblazer. I'm one of one that checks off the box of physician, queer, mom of trans kid, immigrant, woman, like literally me. So it's not like I had a group of friends to go ask. That's why I started my Facebook group. Because I was like, there's gotta be other people out there. So today we're 2,500 parents. But the point is, I didn't have anyone. I did have this book that was given to me at the San Antonio Pride Center, Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Vaid Menon, which is how I fell in love with them, because they are non-binary. And I've been just following them, and I've actually met them twice now, and we're actually like friends at this point. But this book is a pocket change collection. It's a tiny little book. It's easy reads, about 2 hours at the most, maybe 1 hour. I recommend you read it multiple times but it's got so much important information about gender binary, and this person is non-binary. But so this book definitely helped me. It's a very easy book. Just understand, because I do not recommend parents, when I say learn from your child, I don't recommend you ask your child, teach me about this. And that's not what I mean. Just like the racism, you don't ask the Black people to teach you about it. But I do want you to learn how to treat your child from your child, who your child is from your child. Then you go do your research, because people like to use that sentence, I'm gonna do my research. So go do your research. But this book definitely helped me. Now, of course, the book is banned. Just like my book that's coming out is going to be pre-banned, but this book I love this book so much. So now that you asked me the question, I'm recommending it. Other than that, I just had to learn on the job. I did a lot of Google searches. I did a lot of introspection. And like I said, I'm queer. My ex-wife and I were like, what does this mean? What does non-binary mean? So I went and looked at it. I was like, what have you heard? I've never heard about it. I never heard about it. But okay, so what do we do? Like, how do we survey them? What is that? Ironically, my younger children were like, okay, sure. Boom. I'm like, wait, what? They're like, Mom, just use they, them, just say they, them. And they went, I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They were ready to go. It didn't bother them. So, hey, for all it's worth, um, the resiliency factor that I saw on Monday gave me hope, the audacity of hope. And so I'm going to hold on to that as long as I can. And I want them to just give all the anti-trans bills their best shot. Don't focus on anything else plaguing America. Just focus on trans kids. I'm giving all the legislatures permission to do that. Don't focus on anything else, not homelessness, not teacher salaries, not nothing. Just focus on trans if that makes you happy. But human beings by nature are resilient. Human beings by nature will find their tribe. And it's just a matter of time before you will either die or be voted out or both. So change is coming. Unfortunately, sometimes it has to be really, 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 really bad before it gets better. But like I said, if you killed all LGBT people today in exactly 40 weeks, which is 10 months really, but 9 months, new ones will be born. So you can't really get rid of us. You might as well just lean in and let us just be who we are. And but look, we're talking today because of this. So I mean, good things are happening from it. You know, I want the people, if I might mention that, to go to my website if they can, and grab my I think it's 7 mistakes that parents make when their kids come out. Just the 7 top ones that I could think about, like, you know, not believing them or thinking it's sexual assault or whatever. Just 7 top mistakes a lot of parents make. It's on my website. If you go to dr-lulu.com/podcasts, podcasts, I think with an S, you will be able to download it, and they can just learn about it.
Yeah, we'll
That's it.
the link in the show notes. And
Yes.
mindful of time, I want to thank you so much for everything that you've offered today, as motivation for people who want to learn more, or hopefully are now inspired to learn more, and take some of those allyship lessons that you were just sharing and bring them into the workplace, right? Showing up for the trans and non-binary people in your life, you know, in our lives, and that includes the workplace, that includes our community, our extended families, and beyond. And what you're doing is absolutely valued. So I want to thank you, give you a round of applause. And
Thank you. Thank you. I want to mention really quickly though that about the workplace, that, you know, people forget that transgender adults were once transgender children. So, and then people that go to work have a home. So I want them to never, ever divorce the workplace from the home. Whatever happens at work, really, truly, one way or the other, is also reflected at home. So I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I wanted to just mention that so that people can know that, yeah. Even the good book, I think Jesus said, you know, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me. So for those Bible torturers out there, I didn't say that, Jesus did.
thank you for that. It's a good note to end on. So I thank you again, and I hope for folks that tuned in, this was helpful. We'll have some of the resources that Dr. Lulu shared in our show notes. And if you want to connect with thought leaders like Dr. Lulu, consider checking out the Belonging Membership Community, belongingmembershipcommunity.com. And we'll see you again on another episode of Imagine Belonging. Thank you. All right.